the relation between India and Nepal, also their neighbors, will continue. But do you think that we could do something on both sides to make it stronger and more positive and more trusting?
अस्सलामु अलैकुम। मैं ज़मीर अहमद अंसारी और आप देख रहे हैं जेड न्यूज़ फॉर यू। अर्ज यह है कि आपने अपने चैनल जेड न्यूज़ फॉर यू को अभी तक सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो सब्सक्राइब करें और साथ में दिए हुए बेल आइकन को भी दबाएं, जिससे हमारी आने वाली सभी वीडियोस के नोटिफिकेशन सबसे पहले आपको मिल सकें।
Thank you. Thank you, Prakash, for a very kind introduction. Chairman and members of FCC South Asia and friends. It's a great honor and privilege for me to have been invited in this interaction program today on India-Nepal relations. I really appreciate Chairman Venkat Narayanji and members of the FCC South Asia for organizing this program. So India-Nepal relations have remained excellent. It is like a relationship between the members of the extended family and close neighbors. There is a civilizational connection. India and Nepal share common terrain and common culture. So that makes the relationship stronger and more sustainable. So if I come back to the historical and civilizational spiritual bonding between Nepal and India, we can say that Nepal is also influenced and linked with the Indus Valley civilization, and also what the anthropologists say is that by about 4000 BC, Tibeto-Burman people, either from northeast India or across Himalayas, they also came to Nepal. But if we see some of the people like us, Brahmin and Kshatris, who went to Nepal, that was around 12th century, in the sense that when there was a Muslim invasion from Afghanistan side to India, and then a lot of Brahmin Kshatris who were in India, they fled to Nepal, especially in the mountain regions, hilly regions. So, and then we have a mixture of people, Tibeto-Burman people. I think they came either from northeast India or across Himalayas. So I think it's a mixture of Brahmin, Kshatri, we call it indigenous people in Nepal, like Magar, Gurung, I think these kind of people. So it's a mixed kind of ethnicity. Both countries have the same or the similar kinds of spiritual beliefs, religious faiths, philosophy, and same gods and goddesses. So I think that makes the spiritual linkage even more strong. Just to give you some example, I think most of the people in Nepal, they would like to travel to Char Dham. Char Dham meaning Badrinath, Jagannath, Rameswaram and Dwarka. So I think it has been the tradition from ages that people from Nepal, I think they would like to go and visit some of these places. In addition, I think the Varanasi, Jyotirlingas and Shaktipeeths, among others, I think they have been very popular for salvation or for mukti for almost all the Nepalis. So similarly, I think the Indians, they would also like to visit Pasupatinath, Muktinath, Janakpur, among others. And then if we see some of the linkages in the southern part of Nepal, every year, I think there are festivals in which I think hundreds of thousands of Indians go to that temple each year, and similarly hundreds of thousands of Nepali people also cross the border and participate in the different religious festivals, whether that's in the West Bengal or UP or Bihar, those kind of areas. King Janak of Janakpura, Nepal, and King Dasrath of Ayodhya, they also created bonds of friendship and partnership between the two countries, because Lord Rama was married to Sita from Nepal. Buddha was born in Nepal and was also enlightened in India, and that's how it spread. Buddhism spread from India all over the world. So that's also the kind of relation that we have in the two countries. So just to summarize the civilizational and religious faith between the two countries, the similar or the same spiritual and religious beliefs is the primary reason for the strong bonding between Nepal and India. This will, I think, whatever we have in terms of economic and political issues, I think this kind of relations will be very strong in the foundation of Nepal-India relationship. And there is the second component, which is basically social and cultural linkages between Nepal and India. If we see some of the people in the southern part of Nepal, as for example, we call it Malays area these days. So they have a family linkage, marriage linkage with the southern part of India, especially the Bihar and UP. But if you go to the far western region of Nepal, they have equally strong relationship with Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh families. I think we even hear that some of the politicians in Nepal, they were born in India and they have become high-level politicians in Nepal. Similarly, we also hear that some of the people who have properties who were born in Nepal have a very high position in India, especially in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. So that's in the far western region of Nepal. But if you see the eastern part of Nepal, adjoining Sikkim and Darjeeling, we have similar kind of relationship between the people living across the border and Darjeeling and Sikkim area. To some extent, Assam these days. Not these days, I think traditionally when Gorkhas started coming to India, when they were recruited in First World War, Second World War. So I think these were some of the places where they settled. So Assam, Northeast India, Darjeeling, Sikkim, they have a strong relation, especially with the eastern part of Nepal. In terms of the modern linkages between Nepal and India, music, cinemas, the hosting of Nepali students traditionally and even today, although many of the Nepalese, they would like to go to the Western countries these days, because Western countries, especially Australia, Europe, United States, they are also opening up compared to what it used to be a long time ago. But India is still a major destination for the higher education for many students in Nepal. Now, increasingly, I think, because of higher level medical facilities in India, a lot of people from Nepal go to any top 5 hospital in Delhi. You see large number of Nepali people coming here for their treatment in India. So that has also changed. Previously, when we talk about 10 years ago, I used to hear about 15 years ago that a lot of people from Nepal, those who can afford, used to go to Bangkok or even Singapore. But now we don't see that many people going to that part of the world, but most of them, almost all of them, are coming to India. So this medical facilities, educational hub, and also cinema, music, and the cultural festivals in India. So these are some of the aspects which are making Nepal and India relations very strong earlier as well as even today. Political linkage, if you see the political linkage, the Sakyas from Magad area, Bihar, Lichavi from Vaishali, Bihar, Ranas, I think we call it Rana regime for about 104 years until 2051. They had the origin in Chittorgarh, Rajasthan, and even the Shah kings of Nepal, I think it said that they came from Chittor area. So they are all linked with India, the rulers in Nepal. As I said earlier, I think as a result of the Muslim invasion in Nepal, both Hindus, Brahmins, Kshatris, and some kind of aristocrats, especially we call them Gurkha aristocrats, and Buddhists, they took refuge in Nepal, and I think the bonding became even stronger. But having said that, I think Nepal has remained always independent. Independent, sovereign country from the very beginning. Nepalis also participated in the independence movement of India, and India has always supported in bringing the people's power in Nepal and democracy in the country. So I think this is the kind of political relation that we have. Even today, there is a very strong linkage between the political parties in India and the political parties in Nepal. Similarly, in the area of defense and employment, I don't have to repeat this one. About 32,000 soldiers from Nepal are serving in 40 different battalions under 7 Gurkha Regiment in the Indian Army. So currently about 140,000 retired soldiers are getting pensions from India. Nepal's army chief is an honorary general of the Indian Army and vice versa. So it does happen, it has not happened in other countries. India has a major role to play in the modernization and supplying the equipment to Nepali army from the very beginning. But in the meantime, Nepal and the Himalayan belt of India are great security buffers to India. I think that is a great advantage to India. Now, talking about the economic relationship between India and Nepal, our currency is pegged with Nepali currency is pegged with Indian rupees. 2/3 of the total trade of Nepal is with India, and about 1/3 of the total investment in Nepal is from India. Because of the open border between India and Nepal, I'll say that the total trade between Nepal and India is much higher compared to the formal figure that we see from the Central Bureau of Statistics from India and Nepal. I think the estimate is something like anything between 50 to 100%. If we see the 100% in the formal trade statistics, probably in actual terms it could be more than 200% of that number. The share of India in total tourist arrival is also very high in Nepal, the highest actually. And then another advantage to the Indians is that they can drive, they can take a bus and go to Nepal for a trip. Almost all petroleum products are imported from India in Nepal. Nepal is also, I think, one of the top export destinations of Nepal. I think it depends on how you calculate the number, formal, informal trade. Then I think it is something in between 5th to 9th largest export destination of India anywhere in the world. It is estimated that about 2 million Indians they depend on the export products from India to Nepal, meaning the manufacturing activities in India to Nepal. So remittances similarly, I think it's not only that remittances are going from India to Nepal, but more remittances are coming from Nepal to India for the reason that there are more skilled workers working in Nepal, and most of the workers they work in Nepal, in India from Nepal are unskilled workers. So that's one of the reasons why you see the estimated figure of total remittances coming from India to Nepal and Nepal to India. The remittances coming from Nepal to India is higher compared to the remittances going from India to Nepal. So because of the open border between the two countries, I think so many people from Nepal, especially these days from the far western region and midwestern region of Nepal, I think they come from the employment opportunities in India. So I think this is how the economic relations have been established and developed between the two countries. There is another component these days, I think, which is emerging very rapidly in terms of water resources and energy cooperation. Although water resources always becomes a political issue because of the sharing of water and who will develop it, who will have the much more importance in terms of the irrigation facilities and flooding facilities. But anyway, I think more than 600,000 rivers flow from Nepal to India. I think they are not only the source of water supply, but also I think the symbol of prosperity for both countries, because it is very important for both countries. They also create flood and inundation, but also I think the irrigation and electricity facilities provided by these rivers is enormous in both the countries. Now India and Nepal, they have decided to have accelerated pace in terms of the development of electricity between the two countries, and import electricity from Nepal to India. So at this point of time, within the last 1.5 years, there are about 7 new projects that have been handed over to the Indian companies. That's almost equivalent to 5,000 megawatt. There is another project called Pancheshwar project in the far western region of Nepal. So the work is going on that one. So if that is built, that is about 5,600 megawatt. So combined, if we combine these two components, about 5,000 megawatt of 7 different rivers, and then 5,600 megawatt of Pancheshwar, I think it's closer to about 11,000 megawatt of electricity generation within the near future, I think. So that will provide enormous opportunity for Nepal to export to India. And not only that, I think India is also interested to have a electricity grid among all BBIN countries, plus other South Asian countries, and Southeast Asian countries to promote and develop the renewable energy. That happens, and I'm sure that will happen soon. It's not very difficult because most of the other regions, they have already done that. Then I think Nepal can also diversify our export destinations, especially of electricity exports, even to other countries. So petroleum pipeline, in terms of energy cooperation between the two countries, there are 3 pipelines one has been already completed, that's Motihari and Amritsar, and there are 2 more in the pipeline that have been agreed to be built jointly between Nepal and India. So that will also help in reducing the transportation cost of petroleum products from India to Nepal. There are many ICPs, integrated checkpoints, 5 of them in the different parts of the southern part of Nepal, starting from Dodara Chandani, that's the far west, to Viratnagar of Nepal. So I think there are about 5 ICPs that are being either, some of them they have been already completed, or some of them are being built very soon. We are also working on the mutual recognition of quarantine certificates between Nepal and India, because once in a while I think it creates some problem while exporting some of the primary products from Nepal to India and from India to Nepal. So if we have this mutual recognition of quarantine certificates between the two countries, that will definitely help, especially the farmers from both the countries in trading the primary products in the region. So that's also, I think there has been significant progress in that area. The other area of cooperation between the two countries, which are again linked to trade and investment, movement of the people, is basically connectivity. For the last 2.5 years, I think there have been 2 railways, especially in the southern part of Nepal, that has been built and then handed over to Nepal. The third one is Raksol Kathmandu. The DPR of the survey has been completed. The Indian government has handed over to Nepal for the review and comments. And then once the review and comments are incorporated in the DPR, then probably we'll be talking about the financing of the project by itself. Now, very recently, I think India has developed inland waterways to expand the transit options to the sea. So there is a possibility that Nepal can also be linked, and there has been already offer from India, and there has been some analysis done how much Nepal can save in terms of transportation and logistic costs using the inland waterways. If I remember correctly, I think there will be significant and substantial savings in terms of transportation costs using the inland waterways multimodal type of transportation system. So that's also one of the areas which is improving. There are few bridges and some road connections that is being also built between Nepal and India. And one of the new connectivity that has been proposed and signed between Nepal and India is on the cross-border payment system through the use of UPI. So India has already done with a few countries like Singapore, US, France, UAE, and very recently I think also Sri Lanka. So Nepal has already done during President's visit 2 months ago in India. So in terms of the overall conclusion, what I can say is that so Nepal's dependence on India is very high, whether we talk about economic dependence or otherwise, family relations, it's very high. There are geopolitical issues these days, no doubt about that. I think especially after the Ukraine war, many regional power and superpowers have become very, very active these days. But despite all these geopolitical issues and challenges, India-Nepal relations have strengthened further, especially after the visits of the Prime Minister Devga last year to India. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Nepal in 2022 in Lumbini, and the recent visit of the Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda to India. So, despite all those geopolitical issues, I can say that the relationship between Nepal and India has further strength. Socio-cultural interdependence and shared kinship, ethnicity and cultural practices have helped to sustain the relationship between the countries. Geographical proximity together with accessibility. I think we have the geographical proximity even with Tibet, but accessibility is not that easy in the northern part. So accessibility, open border between the two countries that have had a significant impact on the relationship between the two countries. Despite some political issues between Nepal and India. So as for example, we have boundary issues, border issues. We have, I think Nepal wanted always to have the revision of the 1950 treaty. The emphasis provided by the two countries on economic issues in recent years are very important because these issues, 1950 treaty, boundary issues, will take some time. But if we can jump towards the economic issues and have stronger cooperation in the economic issues, I think that will be more useful, fruitful in the short term to medium term. So the emphasis provided by the two countries on economic issues is very important. So if we see some of the agreements that have been done over the last 15 months, I think I can give you some examples. Government to government, G2G agreement on fertilizer supply to Nepal, 2 more hydropowers handed over to Indian companies. India agreed to take 10,000 megawatts in 10 years time from Nepal. Use of Indian transmission line to electricity from Nepal to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is also interested in importing electricity from Nepal and also investing in some of the hydro projects in Nepal. So similarly, I think with the Indian emphasis to link electricity trade, the grid with BVIN countries, other South Asian countries, including Sri Lanka and Southeast Asian countries, that will provide an enormous opportunity for Nepal for not only for exporting electricity but also in diversifying the market and maximize the benefit out of the market situation. use of Indian transmission line to Bangladesh. High power transmission lines have also been are also being built between Nepal and India. So there is unused fund from India, Exim Bank, but now all the unused fund will be used in building the 4 new transmission lines in India that have also been agreed. 2 railways lines, 2 petroleum pipelines, 3 additional ICPs. So I think these are some of the economic linkages and economic activities that have been agreed over the last 15 months. However, I think there are political issues. We also need to address them. In the recent visit of our Prime Minister of Nepal, Prasanna, PM Modi ji has said we will resolve all the issues, be it the boundary issue or any other issues, through dialogue. So India and Nepal have decided in that context to amicably resolve the long-standing boundary issues between the two countries. Plus, I think there is a report done by 2 groups of people from Nepal and India, established by both governments, agreed and nominated by both governments to review the 1950 treaty. It's called EPG report, Eminent Persons Group's report. I think that has still to be made public and see what are some of the priority areas of EPG report are in terms of reviewing the 1950 treaty and how they can be implemented. So I think these are the 2 political issues still remaining. The overall issues in terms of Nepal-India, I think a lot of people in Nepal talk about rising trade deficit with India. But as I said earlier, the electricity export from Nepal to India probably will have some significant impact in reducing the trade deficit between the 2 countries. Plus, this recognition of the mutual certificates of quarantine that will also be useful especially in exporting or importing, trading the primary products. We are also trying to see if we can have some industrialization in Nepal. I think at this point of time, the share of manufacturing sector in GDP is only about 6%. So if we can develop some kind of industrialization in Nepal, especially in the special economic zone, I think that will boost the industrial production in the country, whether that's in terms of import substitution or for exporting the products. I think that's one of the areas Nepal is also trying to emphasize. And there is a lot of interest, not only from India, but also from other countries to invest in special economic zone in Nepal, including from China and other some of the Western countries. And there is another area, IT area. We produce so many graduates in Nepal in the area of IT, but because of lack of big companies, IT companies in Nepal, many of these people are going abroad, especially Europe, Australia, and other countries, even to India. So I think that's one of the areas where we can also compete and develop to reduce the trade deficit between the 2 countries. There is always this perennial issue, flood and inundation in border area. I think if we can cooperate at the local level as well as at the provincial level in terms of discussing the planned infrastructure development across the border, whether that's in the Nepal side or in the Indian side, I think this kind of issues, problems can be minimized, even eliminated in the medium term. Yes, I think there have been some delay in project implementation, but now there is a mechanism, oversight mechanism between India and Nepal to monitor the activities why things are being delayed. There are a number of reasons. If we talk about Exim Bank loan to Nepal, I think there are certain prerequisites. You can do this, you cannot do this. So I think that will make the implementation a bit complicated. We are also trying to see how we can simplify these kind of activities. And there is also one issue raised by Nepal, that's getting the additional air entry routes from India to Nepal. At present, we have only one route, that's closer to Birgan, it's called Simra. So all the flights that come from western part of the western hemisphere, eastern hemisphere, they all have to come through that Simra air entry routes. But Nepal is also trying to get some other air entry routes, especially the Mahendranagar in the far western region, so that I think it will be less congested and more economical and operation-wise, in terms of time-wise, cost-wise, I think it will be more beneficial. As I said earlier, 1950 treaty and EPG report, they are always on the agenda. Some ongoing issues like boundary and border issues, I think they are also there to be addressed. So I think I would like to stop here. I think probably this is just a review of what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge the presence of Their Excellencies, the Ambassadors of Sudan and Somalia. Thank you very much. Yes, quite a few diplomats are here. Thank you very much. And so coming now over to Q&A. So there's a microphone. Kindly raise your hand and wait for somebody to come to the microphone. Kindly identify yourself and then ask the question. Yes, Dinesh? Raju.
I think if you see, I think the numbers and all the activities, I think there is no comparison of India in terms of economic relationship, cultural relationship between in Nepal, basically. There is no comparison with China. But China, I think, being not only a northern neighbor of Nepal, but also becoming very rich. You see the GDP, and you see now I think China occupies almost about 17% of the GDP of the global GDP, and the per capita income is also high. And definitely, I think China is also trying to help many other countries, including Nepal. So wherever I think Nepal thinks that it will be useful in terms of infrastructure development, that will help the development of Nepal, I think we are free to take that one. So, but definitely we will be careful on what kind of mechanism is there, what kind of support is there, whether that's useful to us or not, and then we definitely have to do analysis. My feeling is that even if we are taking the World Bank loan, ADB loan, some of these loans, yes, concessional loans, but may not be very useful if you do the thorough analysis of these loans and the projects, basically. So I think it's up to the country to prioritize and see which are beneficial to the country, the terms and conditions, and the rate of return, whether that's economic rate of return or the internal rate of financial return of that. So I think we are careful and we have to be careful on that.
Sit down.
Hi sir, Siddharth from Beyond. Sir, we saw India having its scheme, the Agnipath scheme. The Agnipath is being inducted as well. But when it comes to Gorkhas, I believe there has not been any recruitment because the Nepali government has not taken a call. If you can give a status update as to what is the situation right now, are you in touch with the Indian side and are we looking at some kind of solution? And so my second question, this is in news, that is why I'm asking you, the Seema Haider case, has this been discussed with the Indian side or has the Indian side raised the matter with you?
The second question, Seema Haider case, I think we have not heard anything from the Indian government side in my case. But I'm sure, I think they are doing their investigation on their one. Um, uh, but talking about your first question on, the first question was on
The Agniveer, sir.
Agniveer, yeah. Nepal government has not decided so far, I guess. But if we see few years ago in terms of recruitment in India, there used to be debates. I think and there is a strong debate in Nepal that we should continue sending people to Indian Army. There's a strong debate. But these days I have not even heard anything of that sort in the civil society or the discussion group. But government has also not been decided on that one. So this is totally undecided.
I got very small, quick questions. One is, Nepal was the only Hindu state in the world. What were the compulsions for Nepal to become a secular state, whereas no Islamic country has become secular state? And second one is, you have partly answered, what has Nepal gained from Nepal-China friendship, and what is the future ahead?
The secular, I think it's a political decision. So it was done by the Constitutional Assembly in Nepal. Yes, you are right. I think even today in the parliament in Nepal, there is a discussion about this one. But anyway, it was decided by the 2/3 majority in Nepal to make Nepal a secular state. But in terms of minds and spirit, I think as we have said, most of the people I think are Hindus and they would like to come and visit most of the Hindu pilgrimages in India, no doubt about that. But that's the totally political decision. And then once it is in the constitutions, we have to honor that. On Nepal, China, I think as I said earlier, we have to be careful on anything that is loan, whether that's ADB, World Bank. I'm also very critical about the ADB World Bank loan in the perspective that between 2015 and 2022, our loan GDP ratio has increased from almost about 27% to almost 50% now, which is dramatic increase, mainly because we had the big earthquake in 2015 in Nepal. A lot of countries, bilateral, multilateral, they offered concessional loans and exit bank loans. But again, mainly because of COVID, and the World Bank ADB also supported the government of Nepal, especially most of the developing countries, by providing loans to different project activities in the country. So, although if you see bilateral loan in Nepal, this is almost negligible. I think we have all concessional multilateral loans in the country, but one has to be careful. But if somebody is coming with a grant, we also have to evaluate that one, whether that's our priority or not. But definitely, I think grant is much more preferred compared to the loan. The loan we need to scrutinize, no doubt about that. So I think the government of Nepal is capable of this. Thank you.
Give us an update on the BRI projects that Nepal and China were thinking about. Where does it stand? Has it taken off the ground? Give us an update.
So far, I think Nepal and China, they agreed, especially on the project topic. 9 projects have been identified under BRI. But so far, none of these projects have been funded. But now there is a kind of controversy in Nepal that the loan that we received from China to build the Pokhara airport, Nepal, and the Chinese side they are saying that this is under BRI. So Nepal government is saying that I think we have not taken any loan under BRI. I think both parties probably will be true because Nepal has not taken any loan under the identified 9 projects. But when Chinese are saying that this is a BRI project, probably they have a different kind of definition. So we need to understand those definitions of BRI itself. But so far, from our perspective, we have not taken any loan under BRI.
One small question. I'm in the tourism industry. Have you heard? Yeah. I'm in the tourism industry, and Nepal definitely is one of the most beautiful countries on this planet. I have a very emotional link with Nepal because I spent my honeymoon there at Pokhara. So I have two questions. One is a question, one is an observation. Question is about the trade connectivity between Lubani, which will help Buddhist tourists, and also between India and Pokhara. Where does it stand and what is the situation? And second is just an observation, because I mean most of the Indians like me, Pashupatinath, and we love Nepal, and we are afraid. I've just come back from Sri Lanka about a week back, and now the people and the government of Sri Lanka realizing that the help China was giving was more of a debt trap in which the entire Sri Lankan economy flagged. And this is happening to some other neighboring countries like Pakistan. So I'm happy that you are evaluating everything very carefully, including the Asian development. So as long as that evaluation is there, I think every country has the right to evaluate the things in their national interest. But at the same time, I think the whole world has realized the game that China plays, particularly when they give and how they send their condemned, labor force to stay in that country and build colonies and all that. So those activities, because we have an emotional link with Nepal, and we don't want what happened to Tibet happens to Nepal. That's all. As long as it remains a buffer.
So about this train connection between Lumini and Pokhara, I think we have not heard anything so far. I think there was some proposal from one of the NGOs long time ago, but since then nothing has been done.
It will increase the tourism substantially.
Yeah, but nothing has. We have not heard anything on that one. But then thank you for your observation and remarks on CRI. Thank you.
Your Excellency, India and Nepal are neighbors, but I am also a neighbor in Delhi with you because I just stay next to the Nepalese High Commission. So I had traveled with Prime Minister Chandrasekhar, who had very cordial relations with Nepal. I was in the Doordarshan team, and of course I've been ex-editorial director general of Doordarshan News. I would ask from you that from the monarchy till the democracy, till we are the Republic of Nepal, why is it that there is an element of suspicion in diplomatic relationship? Do you think that we can have a very positive and of course being the largest open border, the relation between India and Nepal, also their neighbors, will continue. But do you think that we could do something on both sides to make it stronger and more positive and more trusting?
Good question. I think it can be done. So as I said, I think there are some of the issues between Nepal and India. I highlighted 4 or 5. And among them, I think some of them are economic. Some of them are, I think, related with 1950 treaty. And some of them are related with the boundary border issues. So they all can be addressed, they all can be solved. I think that's what I think the Indian government is also saying. I think the diplomacy and dialogue can solve all these problems, but it needs to be done a bit faster. So, but it will take time, no doubt about that. It can be done, but I think the relations between, if you see India, Nepal, or even bigger countries, Canada, US, you see similar kind of thing to some extent. But I'm very confident that if you see the trend over the last 15 months of the visits of the Prime Ministers of India to Nepal and Nepal to India, things have dramatically changed, improved, strengthened. The same way, if we work on the other areas, definitely I think our relationships could be even much more stronger and more sustainable.
Namaskar, Shankar Prasad Sharma ji. Welcome to India. We are proud that an Indian has become the Nepal country ambassador of India. And I am Shweta Devi, National General Secretary, Vishnu Sanatan Hindustan, and I am also member Nepal Bharat Maitri Hindu Dharma. So I just wanted to put you a very small question. When it comes to the development of tourism and culture development in Nepal Bharat, what is your opinion and what is your words towards it?
I think India and Nepal, they are trying to support Ramayana circuit and Buddhist circuits, but it's going in a very slow pace. The reason I'm saying is that from my country itself, if people would like to go to Lumbini, I think they only go to this Maya Devi Mandir, the birthplace. But there are so many other places where the palace existed earlier. I think Maya Devi is mighty. I think so. They've had Tilora Court, so many other places of importance. They have done the archaeological excavation. But in terms of developing them as a tourist spots, it has not been done. Despite that, excavation was done long time ago. So similarly, some of the products. I think Nepal is very famous in terms of adventurous tourism, but we also need to improve upon infrastructure aspect.
Sharmaji, usually Nepal is being chosen by so many monks to do the meditation also. For that kind of people, what kind of special arrangements will the country do?
No, I think if you see Vipassana and those kind of meditation activities, mostly they are done by the Buddhist organizations in Nepal. Although in Nepal, I think there is a strong relationship between Buddhism and Hinduism. As for example, in Buddha Purnima, being a Hindu myself, I think I go and celebrate Buddhist festivals. Similarly, all these Buddhist people, they come to Pasupatinath. So we have a very cordial relationship between these two religious groups. There are plenty of areas. I cannot name you this number 1, number 2, number 3. There are plenty of areas where people can go and do meditation, yoga.
What is your favorite temple at Nepalji? Last but not the least, and who is your favorite god?
Favorite is definitely Pasupatinath, no doubt about that.
Great.
I live very close to Pasupatinath. Thank you.
Kindly hand over the microphone to the
Thank you, Jai Shri.
man sitting in front of me. Yes.
Namaskar, Your Excellency. I am Rakesh Kumar, member India Society of International Law. Just like India is increasing its trade partnership, economic understanding with many other countries, how far these steps are taken with Nepal, its oldest business ally, to increase the prosperity and mutual sharing of the trade and the other economic free trade agreements. Thank you.
In terms of free trade agreement, I think anything that is produced in Nepal, except for 4 items like this: arms, ammunition, liquor, perfumes, tobacco. I think except these 4, anything that is produced, manufactured in Nepal can come to India duty-free, quota-free. There are few items now. I think India has put some quota, especially edible oils, things like that. But otherwise, anything that we can produce, we can export to India. But I think we have some customs duty for Indian products. The balance here is very difficult. The reason is that if we have a very high customs duty for Indian products, then because of the open border, more than 1800 kilometers, then I think you get all the goods smuggled. The Indian and Nepali businessmen, they will be rich, but the government will be poor and the poorer. So I think the customs duty that we are imposed has been very low. So that's one of the reasons why India has become the dominant trading partner with Nepal. Nepal, in terms of exports, I think we export mostly primary products. So that's the reason why I think I was mentioning about the mutual recognition of quarantine certificates. But in addition to that, I think there are some manufacturing units like Dabur Nepal. I think there are Unilever. There's so many other companies, manufacturing companies, they export manufacturing products to India, taking advantage of that almost, I would say, almost free trade agreement between the two countries. Now the emphasis has been more on hydroelectricity development and imports to India. I think both countries will win. India will win in terms of the renewable and the use of renewable energy. Also, they can save on generation cost, investment in that area. So Nepal can gain in terms of overall revenue by selling electricity to India, Bangladesh, number of other countries. So that is being that has been given more priority in this bill. So I will definitely say that the trade relations between Nepal and India has enhanced significantly. And then if we see over the next 5 to 10 years, I will say that it will increase even more strong. Thank you.
Myself, Dr. Rekha. I want to ask a very small question. I ask you what are the archaeological relationship nowadays India and Nepal? And second one is, you told Nepal is exporting electricity to India. It is because of lack of industrialization or what? Because Nepal can use many ways electricity in the agriculture field also. Because nowadays agriculture is also like in industry or like udyog and etc.
This archaeological, I really don't know that much, but I see a number of universities coming from the Western countries, whether that's in Lumbini or Pashupatinath area, number of the Western university people are coming and doing some excavations. That's what I see in the newspaper, but I am not very sure about the relations between India and Nepal in modern times. Previously, yes, I think there are a lot of Indians doing that. This electricity trade, you are also right to some extent. But the problem with Nepal is most of the electricity are generated by run-of-the-rivers generators. So that means in the summertime they can use full capacity, 100%. But in the winter time, I think they can use only 35 to 40% capacity. So that's the reason we have to have more projects. But if we have more projects, there will be spill energy in the summertime. So that's the reason we need to have some export market, and India is the obvious nearest market. And then definitely I think we are looking for some other markets, including I think Bangladesh and eventually probably Sri Lanka and other countries. But even I think your question is valid in the sense that we can do more in the area of industrialization in the country and use more and more electricity. But recently we are trying to substitute, as most of the countries are doing, these vehicles, fossil fuel from to electricity. Thank you.
So my name is Anjali Ojha. I'm from Trust of India. So you talked about how rivers would flow from Nepal to India, and also you talked about like how the border areas are flooded and it can be resolved. Can you please elaborate a bit on that, because like regular flooding has been a major problem in states like Bihar, and they are like are there talks going on, or like how what is the idea?
Yeah, I think this flood and inundation problem, I think it exists in both sides. But some of the smaller activities, like if I go on the list, even in the Nepal side, there could be about 100 different action points on flood and inundation, because there are some infrastructures built in the Indian side, and I think we don't know who is building that. I think there has not been any dialogue and discussion on that one. So, but in principle, I think both groups, they are supposed to discuss at the local level what they are doing and what will be the implication to the other countries. I think except for the bigger projects. So that's what I think both countries are providing emphasis. And for the areas where there has been already done some damages, I think they are trying to construct some dams or some other preventive measures in that area. The bigger one, I think it's always a big problem. Environmentalists will also, I think, ask different questions on making the big dams in the country. So discussions are going on, but not moving towards the concrete conclusion.
So what do you think should be done in this case?
No, I think there are technologies, there are ways by which we can control these kind of things, and we can benefit out of dams, irrigation, electricity generation, flood control. All of this can be done. But again, I will say that the dialogue, the continuous dialogue with the experts group will probably help in identifying different alternatives and mechanisms. But this is not only the question of technical issues, but also the question, the political questions also. The benefits going to Nepal, benefits going to India, how do we share that one? I think, but the dialogue and discussion, just like I gave the example of Francisco, and I am hopeful that this will be addressed, this will be done. So similarly, other projects and programs can also be resolved if they start talking, identifying projects and talking on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Preeti, I work independently. Excellency, my question to you is a small follow-up on the China issue. If you could specifically tell us what are Chinese footprints in Nepal in terms of infrastructure or in terms of investments and all. And my second question is that which all companies from India have invested in Nepal, as you just mentioned? Thank you.
I think the Chinese, definitely it comes government to government, that's number one. And number two, the investment area, whether that's in the service sector or the industrial areas. But I have not seen that many industries in Nepal funded by Chinese. If we go by statistics, out of total investment, total stock of investment in Nepal, 15% is from China and about 33% from India. But there is interest in China and Chinese entrepreneurs to invest in Nepal. Probably they are not only looking at the market in Nepal, but also the entire South Asia. But so far, in terms of private sector investment, it has not been materialized to a large extent, except for some cement and some other bigger industries. Government to government, I think, as I explained earlier, even I think China will also give some grant to Nepal and also trying to give some loans to Nepal, and also in the past has given some loans, like for example I mentioned about the airport. We need more capital budget in Nepal, no doubt about that. But if somebody is offering, just like MCC, $500 million, and this is a big project, although there is a political controversy in Nepal, but finally the Parliament approved and then Nepal government decided to take it. So actually that will benefit both India and Nepal, not basically the Americans, because this will go in making the transmission line between India and Nepal. So anything that is useful in Nepal, if it is grant, then I think it will be much easier. If it is loan, then we need to be careful, as I said earlier. So it's not only China, but also other countries. But China, I think people are talking about different other terms and conditions that we have to identify. And these days, internationally, I think there is some also suggestion, not only for the receiving countries, but also for donor countries to analyze upon the benefits, environmental consideration, and the overall economic, macroeconomic situation of the receiving countries. So if all the countries, that's ideally, if all the countries follow that, that will be the best. But otherwise, I think the receiving countries, they have to do that. There is no doubt about that. But in terms of activities, just to summarize, I have not seen that much of activities of China these days, whether that's in the grant side or in the foreign activities. Thank you.
an Indian company that have invested?
Pussy project, as for example, the barrage has become very old. I think either we have to build a new one or plan something else. So similarly in the Gandak area, I think there are some issues in the Nepal side as well as in the Indian side. There is a working group working on that one, and hopefully I think they will resolve some of these issues. But from my perspective, I think if we can do it quicker, it's much better to both countries, and this will be the win-win situation because of the climatic change. The problem of floods, inundation is even increasing day by day. Thank you. India has, I think, developed some kind of mechanism in Agnipath. We would like to utilize the same mechanism to the recruiters from Nepal. And Nepal is saying something different, right? We would like to go for the older kind of system and mechanism. So, and that's what it is, and it has not been closed, but I have not seen any serious discussion going on between the two countries. So I'll say that this is so far is pause, in the pause stage, I'll say. Thank you.
Ambassador, there is a proposal to connect by railways Tibet and Nepal, assuming that the Indians and the Chinese will sort out their border problem sooner than later. Do you foresee this rail connectivity happening? And can one travel by train from Beijing and via Tibet and Kathmandu come to Delhi 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, I don't know what?
I know, I think now the Chinese are doing the survey on this one also. So after completing the survey, then we have to find out the feasibility of this train. That's number one. And number two, the financing mechanism. Who will finance? How it is financed? So that's the second question. At this point of time, I cannot say anything on that one. But what Chinese are saying is that it's expensive, but technically feasible. So let's see. We'll wait for the DPR and see how feasible it is for Nepal, India, China. What will be the benefits and what will be the funding mechanism to build this.
Excellency, I have got a question. Please. This is regarding that 1950 treaty. You talk about that eminent persons in the group.
Yeah.
They have given their report, but content is not known. But as you know that it is Nepal which traditionally has had some reservations about that treaty, not from the Indian side. And then the Indian side did say that some of the provisions of that treaty have already been diluted, like in the case of Nepal importing arms or transferring arms. So my question is this: if this treaty is an unequal treaty between the two countries, and we have been hearing a lot about that, particularly from the Nepal's side, is it not time to completely abrogate it? If we abrogate it totally, what will be the implications, both for, from your perspective, I'm not talking about Indian side implications. What do you think should be the problems, or then why such a demand is that will come?
Yes, I think there has been several articles and analysis done in this area, both by Nepali scholars as well as Indian scholars, saying that this is, yes, unequal, and this was done long time ago, 1950, so we probably need to revise it. But that's the reason why this scheme was formulated by two countries, India and Nepal. But we have not been able to see what they have written, whether there's a possibility that they have suggested
Abrogation.
totally abrogation. We don't know. So let's wait and see when this is made public, and then see what can be done among those suggestions that have been provided by a group of eminent persons, both countries, India and Nepal. So before that, I think at this point of time, it's very difficult to say. I think that will be only hypothetical. So I would like to wait and see the report. Thank you.
Switch off your mobile phones and put them in the silent mode so that there is no disturbance. Thank you. A warm welcome to Your Excellency Shankar Prasad Sharma, Ambassador of Nepal, for accepting our invitation and coming to speak despite us. And a warm welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen. We have had the High Commissioner of Bangladesh and High Commissioner of Sri Lanka. He is the third head of mission from South Asia to be talking to us. And I now request our Secretary, Mr. Prakash Nanda, to introduce our guest. Thank you.
His Excellency is a senior economist, I think an economist by profession, and then of course a diplomat. He was ambassador of Nepal, United States from 2009 to 2014. He served as also the Vice Chairman of the National Planning Commission from 2002 to 2006. He had a PhD in economics from the University of Hawaii. His Excellency worked as a consultant to the Constitutional Committee on the distribution of natural resources, economic rights, and public revenue in helping draft the new Constitution of Nepal. He has served in various other capacities for the government of Nepal, such as a member of NPC, Chief Advisor to the Ministry of Finance, and alternate governor of Nepal for the International Monetary Fund, and also as a senior economist in the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies. That was in between 1986 and 1993. His Excellency has extensive experience in government, international institutions, and economic research. Before joining the National Planning Commission as a member in 1997, he also worked as a senior economic advisor to the Ministry of Finance Nepal, a senior economist in the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies, which I have already pointed out, and a fellow in the East-West Center, Hawaii. He has also served as a professor of economics in the Center for Economic Development and Administration, that is Sri Bhuvan University. So, welcome to Your Excellency.
Yeah. I think half an hour. Yeah. Then followed by you speak for about 20 minutes. Then we will have a Q&A. Thank you, Prakash. And now we invite Your Excellency to speak. Thank you.
Discussion. We had so many questions and you very patiently at length answered all of them. So big thank you from all of us. And also this session was streamlined live on the Facebook page of FCC. So if anyone wants to go back and check out the recording, it will be available in the archives section. There's a small request that if anyone does a report on this interaction, please do mention that this interaction took place at the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia. Also, I would like to thank the ambassadors of Sudan and Eritrea for being here with us today. Thank you, sir, so much. Once again, sir, thank you so much for coming and being with us here today.